Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Godzilla film podcast episode. And what you see here, I got my very own mug here with my channel icon profile on it. And it's really cool. I just got it from the mail a few days ago. This is really cool. And as you know, there's really nothing in it. And oh yeah, but anyway, then so in my last episode, I did Godzilla versus Mothra from 1992 with Donnie Winter. Well, today's episode we'll be talking about Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla II from 1993. And we have a special guest here tonight, and he has his own podcast show on his YouTube channel. He interviews with YouTubers, and please welcome Mark Justice.
Thank you for having me on, Brennan.
Hey, you're welcome. And how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I've been looking forward to having this talk with you and to talk about one of my favorite movies of the franchise. So thank you for inviting me on. I'm really honored. Thank you.
You're welcome. And also the guests are in the comments too. We have
Hey,
Jedi
Walter.
Grand. Hey, Walter, and we have Kaiju brother
Nick. How's it going?
Yeah, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to do this episode with you, Mark.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And I know that this film is one of your favorite Godzilla films in the Heisei era.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is like not my favorite, but I mean, I like the film, but it's not one of my favorite Heiseis. But so yeah, I'm looking forward to talk about this with you.
Yeah, same here.
So I'm going to ask you, like, how do you discover this film for the first time, like, as far as you can remember?
Yeah, my good friend Tim Bean, who I lived with for a while, we worked at the same restaurant. We'd known each other since I was in college. He's another huge Godzilla fan. He actually has a company, Japan's Legends, and he works with celebrities and brings them over to conventions right now. Well, way back in the day, the only way you could get Godzilla movies, because they weren't being released here in the States outside up through Godzilla 1984 or 5, that's what it was called in America, was you had to get bootlegs. So there was a company, Video Daikaiju, that sold VHS bootlegs. And so Tim would buy these and then we would watch them. And so I remember, and some of these copies, like when we first got our first copy of Godzilla versus Mothra, it was someone had set up a camera like in the theater. And so the screen was there. And then halfway through, the camera tilted, so the screen was kind of cockeyed. And you could hear the kids like screaming, and when Godzilla came out, they were all cheering and screaming. So it was kind of like you were there, in the audience. So, and that's how we got our first copy of Mechagodzilla II. And so that was our first taste of it.
Yeah. So I'm not too crazy about bootlegs disc. Like
this was a VHS tape. This was old VHS tape because there were no such things as DVDs at the time. That's in 1994 or 5 or so, there were no DVDs that I recall. But yeah, I get what you mean. But that was the only way we could buy things, and movies that had been out for a long time. Like this was the current movie. This was still out, so it was pretty fresh. But like older movies, like the other Godzilla movies from the Showa era and Mysterians and things like that, there were really nice copies out there. And Video Daikaiju had what we would consider DVD quality copies from pristine Japanese sources, and then they would put subtitles on them, and that's how we got our Godzilla fix at the time.
Yeah, and I remember my days that I got my very first bootleg that I got a copy of Spider-Man 3, the one from 2007.
Yeah, and what did you think about that?
I mean, I remember getting that bootleg copy from an old neighbor of mine from my old hometown in Georgia, and they got a bootleg copy of Spider-Man 3, and it was like the picture quality is just terrible.
Yeah.
It's just so dark. You couldn't even see the fight scenes or the characters and
It's
yeah, that
probably
was
for the best because that's not a good movie. So, but I don't want to get too sidetracked from
yeah,
Godzilla. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But anyway, like so back to Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, and I would love to talk about how I first discovered this film. I mean,
yes,
like I remember that I think I mentioned in my previous episode that I after I watched Rebirth of Mothra 3 on my cable television, that after I watched that film, that got the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla was cable on television, and then right after that movie, it then came the sequel, but I didn't watch the beginning. I kind of almost like I think I went to the bathroom like during that time when I was a kid, and but I don't remember. It's hard to remember that time. I mean,
sure.
but when I but when I turned my TV back on, that another Godzilla film was on. It's like Godzilla. All I could watch was Godzilla fighting Rodan.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I know so far. And but I didn't watch the whole film. I think I only watched half of it. I mean, I didn't watch the whole fight of the whole Mega Godzilla fight scene and Baby Godzilla, and I think I didn't watch the whole thing. I think I just need a little rest from these films that are cable on television.
Sure,
Yeah, and
understandable. Right.
yeah, but when then a few years later, when TriStar re-released these films on DVD for the 50th anniversary of Godzilla, and when they released the DVD of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, I didn't even know there was like a sequel. When I saw the DVD cover of it, all I see is Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, and I even see Rodan in the background. And I was like, is that the same film that they have on cable television that I saw as a kid that I didn't even watch the whole thing? And so it is. And I think I remember when I remember months later that I am when it started cable airing on television again, I'm starting to watch the whole film seriously.
Hmm.
So I just sit down and watch the whole thing, and I can say I kind of love this film so much, and I actually thought it was a sequel to the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla from 1974,
Hmm.
but I was wrong. But
Yeah, because then Terror of Mechagodzilla came out the next year. Yeah, yeah. This was
yeah,
kind of like a rebirth. I mean, Toho was bringing back King Ghidorah. They brought back Mothra, and it made sense that they would bring back Mechagodzilla because um, it's why I chose this movie because Mechagodzilla, the original '74, is one of my favorite films of the whole franchise, and I think he might be Mechagodzilla might be my favorite villain of all,
mm,
just because I think he's just got so many cool weapons. He has a great look that now we would call kind of steampunk
mm,
look and robotic, and this this new Mechagodzilla was more contemporary and streamlined. I still prefer the 74, to be honest, but this
yeah,
one really emulated that. And it was the first time we saw Rodan in what, 25 years? I think the last movie he was in before was Destroy All Monsters.
yeah. Destroy all
Yeah,
monsters.
so it had been 25 years since Rodan had been in a movie. So, and even though it's a little different version of Rodan, they made him more close to the Pteranodon, and rather than the larger ones we see in the original, the earliest Showa movies. But
Yep.
yeah, so it kind of had all the moments for me that made me like it so much.
Yeah, and I actually got Fire Rodan right here, and
Nice, very nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta say Rodan in this film looks very closely related to a pteranodon,
Hmm.
just the way it looks, and
Yeah, and he's considerably smaller. In the Showa era, he's every bit as tall as the other monsters because there's a person in a suit, and then this one it's more of an animatronic kind of thing, and so they made
yeah,
it a little smaller.
Yep. And I think they used like 4 props of him. Like, I mean, they used 2 flying modes for Rodan. I mean, the reason I think they used 2 flying modes props of him is because one of them they repainted him, like one is brown and one is red because it is
Mm.
power up. It's called Fire Rodan.
Yeah, that one I don't remember them explaining thoroughly like how that power came to be. Like he was still getting radiation on the island, perhaps, but we didn't see it earlier. It's only the second time that when Rodan kind of chimes in later that we see this whole fire Rodan aspect to him.
Yeah, and yeah, and they usually use like a little stand model of Rodan. It was the way he's standing, and they and they kind of use like a hand puppet for
Hmm.
the scene when Rodan was picking on Godzilla's face,
Hmm.
and I definitely love the part when Godzilla's doing to Rodan of the Homer Simpson choking Bart style.
Right. Yeah, we never saw that before. Even with all the in the Showa era, we saw like the really grappling came about sometimes with definitely with King Ghidorah, sometimes with Anguillus, but that grappling, they're always grabbing onto the tail or King Ghidorah's head and doing the body flips, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, and I also like it when some yellow foam or yellow blood came out of Rodan's mouth when Godzilla was choking him,
Hmm.
and and it, what I heard there was like an earlier script for the opening of this film but it was scrapped. I mean, but the earlier script they were gonna have an original opening scene of that that shows like a flashback of to the prehistoric time when a Godzillasaurus was fighting a pteranodon
Mm.
for the opening scene, but that script was scratched and
Okay, that makes sense because that's how we have the Godzillasaurus, the baby Godzilla egg, mixed in with the pteranodon eggs.
yeah,
That would make sense to have to show that earlier kind of combativeness. Yeah, that was an interesting twist
yeah, and
with
that
the baby
kind of
Godzilla.
yeah, and I gotta say that earlier script is kind of sounds similar to the for the early opening for Jurassic World Dominion.
Mm.
Yeah, don't you remember that short film when they show a little throwback of the to the prehistoric time when a Tyrannosaurus Rex fights the Giganotosaurus?
I don't, but I'm glad you have that good memory. I mean, I watched the movie, but I don't have the recall that you do, so that's good. I applaud your superior memory.
Yeah, I think they add that scene to the extended version of Jurassic World Dominion, but I
Oh, okay.
haven't watched the extended version yet. But maybe I'll give it a watch someday. But
Sure.
eh, so yeah, I think that might be. I thought it'd be better if they show a little flashback of a Godzilla source find a pteranodon and
Kind of set the stage, right? They let us know that this is what they think happened, but it also reminded me it was still like kind of a nod to discovering the egg, like we did in Mothra versus Godzilla and Godzilla versus Mothra. We discovered this egg, and so they can kind of continue this theme, because I think we don't ever see baby Godzilla. Do we see baby Godzilla hatching out of an egg?
yeah, yeah,
In Son of Godzilla?
yeah, they show baby Godzilla hatching an egg somewhere in the middle of the film. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
y-
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I do love Son of Godzilla, but I hadn't wasn't completely remembering whether he came out of an egg or not. So that makes perfect sense.
and I'm glad you brought up about Baby Godzilla, but when Toho was working on the project for this film, they want to bring back Manila and to be in this, and but the director of this film is doesn't want to because he doesn't like Minya that much.
Yeah, Minya's one of those. I think monsters that are kind of divisive, maybe sometimes. I mean, I was a kid when I first saw these movies, so Godzilla's Revenge was always special because it was, I was about 8 or 9 when I saw this, so it's a perfect fantasy movie for an 8-year-old. Because you fantasize being on Monster Island, you want to be able to talk to Minya and have Godzilla be your friend.
Yeah.
All those great things that
Mm.
are part of that. So what I do, when I like the direction that they took the Godzillasaurus in, because I was expecting that kind of lumpy, dumpy looking doughboy again, and so they made him look very much like a baby dinosaur with
Yeah.
softer features. So I really like the design of the baby Godzilla.
Yeah, me
Less
too.
so in Space Godzilla. He got too cute. They made
Yeah.
him like puppy dog. I'm like, okay, now you kind of lost me there. But on
Yeah,
this
and
one, he looks pretty nice.
yeah, and we had some other
Hey,
guests.
KL.
Hey, hello there, like KL's International and reviews, and how's it going? Let's and we got the monster report. How's it
Nice.
going?
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, we had we had some guests on here, and
Yeah, nice.
yeah, but anyway, so design of Baby Godzilla looks much better, and what I heard that this Baby Godzilla is actually the Godzillasaurus. I mean, but it was like a baby version. But
Hmm.
for what I heard, it's like in the film that they say that a Godzillasaurus laid its eggs and laid an egg in a pteranodon's nest. Yeah, and that's what I heard because so that way the
Kind of like the
pteranodon.
cuckoo, I think. Isn't that what the cuckoo does? Lays his eggs in other nests and let other birds kind of take care of the young.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's what we have here going on, and so that was something interesting to learn about that.
and that's what it explains that when they that in the scene when they discovered the egg, there were like two eggs, but one already hatched. So that egg is like, oh, it's what is Radon's egg.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yes,
and Rodan was already flying around and doing its thing, you know.
yeah, it's like it is. So that makes Baby Godzilla Radon's half little brother.
Kind of. That's they have that connection, that kind of emotional, psychic connection early on. When the baby they visit that. That's when the baby's scared. When Rodan shows up, they kind of communicate. Rodan picks up on the emotional state of the baby, and that's really it's the baby Godzilla. It's what kind of revives Rodan to come and save Godzilla, bring him back to life. After he's effectively dead.
Yeah, and uh, when I was little, so I always thought that when Godzilla rises out of the sea and then fights Rodan, I thought he's only arises trying to get the egg, and he did
Mm.
this like he did the same thing when he appears in Tokyo and after the egg was hatched.
Mhm.
He's just apparently looking for his child.
Yeah, we see that's a theme that we see echoed from the original Mothra movie too. Mothra shows up looking for the twins, the fairies, and kind of does all kinds of destruction. And here's Godzilla sensing the baby as well, and comes looking for it. Yeah,
Yeah, it does sound similar to the original Mothra. And also, Nick says there's two of Godzilla's suits in this film. One is Battle Goji suit was used in the Battle Rodan and water scene, and the Rattle Goji was used in the land.
good to know.
Yep.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, Nick knows everything. I'm glad. Yep, and yeah, so they use two Godzilla suits, and one suit is for the water and one's for the land. I mean, I so yeah, it's for the Goji suit. I mean, the one they use for the whole film.
Hmm.
I mean, that suit. I think that was my least favorite.
What about it makes it your least favorite?
I don't know. I think I like Battle Goji better because I don't know, the Rattle Goji kind of a little looks less muscly looking.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know. I think they made the neck too short, and then they
Mm,
made the spines a little too higher. And I don't
okay.
know. I think I prefer Battle Goji
Hmm.
because
Yeah, I get it. I like the suit in King Ghidorah and Biolante, and then I really love. I think my favorite one of my favorite suits of all the entire series, is the suit for Destroya. The Burning Godzilla.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I think
that
it
and
just looks good. It just looks so imposing. The power of the suit, of the body. The way they've kind of got them designed, very much like a pyramidal shape or triangular shape. Um, I don't mind the suit design in this one. What I don't like is that it's shiny. The skin, all the suits shiny, reflect the studio lights.
yeah,
Where in the other movies, the suits are matte. These will almost look like they were semi-gloss, and it really kind of takes me out of the movie because I'm thinking, oh, this looks like it's plastic. It doesn't look like it's flesh of some kind. So that's the one thing that I wish, if they could have done something a little different, and maybe they wanted to show all the detail or something, or they use different lights or something, but everything looks like it's plastic, and that's the one thing that just stands out for me. Like, ugh, you have these great looking suits, but they shine, they reflect multiple
yeah,
surfaces, and it just takes me out of the movie too much.
yeah. And speaking of plastic and shining, I think like that the Mechagodzilla suit. I mean, it this suit is not like the original suit from 1974 or 75. I mean,
Hmm.
and and but this one is not like it's, it's not like made out of like a tin like tin looking
Well, it's
sort
like
of way.
Space Titanium was the original one, right? And then I forget what the substance is for the new one, 93 version, but they coat it in this diamond, when it's supposed to absorb Godzilla's beam, and then they could reflect it out into the massive weapon, amplify it, and project it out. So I guess it's kind of like maybe where we see Iron Man, the influence of Tony Stark's suit, where it could absorb energy and reflect it back out. I'm not sure who imitated who first. Iron Man came out much
Mm.
earlier, this power. So that could be, or it could just be a coincidence, but still kind of a cool concept, because we also see Garuda returned,
Yeah.
in a way. And the movie is really good at kind of giving us a little slice of this Heisei here. We got Garuda, and mentioned
Oh
the
yeah.
Mecha King Ghidorah, so we kind of get a little bit of a history lesson going up to this.
Right.
And now we're doing the Mecha Godzilla. Like, okay, and it is different because it's not the aliens who are trying to make a mechanical Godzilla look like Godzilla to fool people.
Yeah.
Which is the original one.
Yeah, this is not the Godzilla we know from the original Shona. This is just like in the original film that Mecha Godzilla was the bad guy in the original Shona, and Godzilla is the good guy. But now in the Heisei film, the roles like been reversed. That Godzilla is the
Mhm.
bad guy and Mecha Godzilla is the good guy.
Right. Yeah. In this one, they've moved away from, because Godzilla starts off in the Showa series where he's a monster, and by the time we have uh, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, come around, he kind of turns into this savior of the world, uh,
Yeah,
protecting the world from these invaders. And then by the time we get to you know Godzilla's Revenge and Megalon, he's almost, and like the way the suit design, almost he has these kind of big puppy eyes. He's almost kind of become this, almost like Gamera, like friend to all children kind
yeah,
of thing. But now in the Heisei series, they treat him very much like a force of nature, which I really like. And that's why they try to get Mickey to kind of use her psychic powers to kind of just change his direction, like we're trying to anticipate a
oh
storm.
yeah,
And so they're so his Godzilla comes off in a very different kind of way. Now they're simply trying to find countermeasures to eliminate or reduce as much damage as they can, the chances of that damage. The one thing I always found silly, and that's one thing my friend Tim and I, when we watched this together, we would notice like when the new mechanical, or Mecha Godzilla would open its mouth, it would roar, and I can understand the original one roaring because they were trying to imitate Godzilla and fool people. But this one, there was like, why would you make this big giant tank? Why would you give it the ability to like roar? It just didn't make any sense. Coming from someone who's suspending his disbelief about the fact that there's, giant lizards and mechanical stuff and monsters, I'm poking at the fact that they made it roar.
Yeah, and yeah, that's so, and and I would say like when I in the beginning of this film that Mechagodzilla was actually built from the parts from Mecha King Ghidorah, which they took them out of the sea, and then so they used some of the old parts and they just to build Mechagodzilla, and
Mm-hmm.
and this is like the first Godzilla Heisei film to introduce G-force.
Right. Yeah, that whole concept. Now we have a governmental agency who's trying to predict Godzilla's movements, find countermeasures, and do everything they can to stop this force of nature. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also love the music theme for Mechagodzilla, especially the opening
Mm-hmm.
scene.
Yeah, Ifukube just lands a masterful suite on this. That opening track is, I think, one of the best that he's ever done. Of all the Godzilla themes, this one might be the most powerful. It's big, it's bombastic, and it's got, those big drums are coming in. It's got the heavy brass, and
Yeah.
it is one of my favorite themes of the entire series.
Oh yeah, and I gotta say the guy who played Mechagodzilla was the same guy who played it that he had the as I was saying that the guy who played Mechagodzilla was the same guy who played the Godzillasaurus in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah,
Mm-hmm.
and then for when he played Mechagodzilla, I mean, this is like the lightest suit that he ever wear because this suit was made out of plastic, and then and it's these spray painted metal looking.
Oh, so I remember. I thought I heard something because he's a swimmer, right? The guy who plays Mechagodzilla is a swimmer. Is that correct? Because I remember reading something about that way early when this movie was coming out, and something about the Mechagodzilla suit was actually one of the heaviest that they had made. It was like I don't know, God, I want to say like 60 kilograms. It was like 150 pounds or something. But maybe that information was wrong because I know the Godzilla suit was big and bulky, but I don't know. I thought that this Mechagodzilla suit was really heavy.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
and they have a remote control to rotate the head, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then the actor's head in the suit is actually inside the neck of the suit.
Mm-hmm. So you can see some carefully placed, vents and things like that, so the suit actor can breathe. And sometimes I think even like in the like especially in the destroyer suit, the Godzilla, there was the oxygen was brought in, so there was an air supply after the first, I think, time where he passed out. Kinsatsuma, I think, passed out because there's just because there was smoke effects going on, and I think it just filled up inside the suit, so they had to kind of redo things by giving him a fresh air supply, which I hope is something that all the suit actors have now.
Yeah, I think that's why they did the scene where they first fight at an open field with the power line is, and they decided to have them fight in the far distance when Mechagodzilla shoot his laser buster or Mega Buster or this. And what I heard remember in Godzilla versus Biollante that the Super X2 has a mirror reflection.
Mm-hmm.
That it reflects Godzilla's heat ray, reflects back at him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Mechagodzilla was made, metal sin is made from the same rear mirror from the Super X2,
Mm.
but Godzilla fires his heat ray on Mechagodzilla, it doesn't reflect back at him, but it can resorb the heat ray and then just absorbs it, and then it just fires it back with the orange beam.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool power. Yeah, Mechagodzilla's always had a lot of weapons. That's when I love the original one because it had like the missiles on the fingers, which reminded me of Giant Robot from Johnny Sacco. He had missiles coming out of his fingers. He had all kinds of different electrical energy beams and missiles and bombs, and it was quite bombastic. And they continue that with this one with different kinds of weapons, with the G grabber, G shocker, and then also when they rebring in Kiryu, a decade later, they kind of keep that concept of multiple weapons, which is nice.
Mm. Yep, and also and Mega Godzilla fire some uh, can fire some wire missiles the same way that Mecha King Ghidorah did, but it actually went through Godzilla's skin and just
Yeah.
electrocutes it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, most shockingly, it's just Godzilla can reverse it back. It,
Kind of a
at
new power that we're seeing, just like when we first see him, it was in Megalon where he flies. Right, we're seeing that new power, but that whole concept though with the cables coming and that's a major plot point later on, where when they identify that Godzilla, the creature, has two brains, one in his head and one in his tail, and that's
yeah.
the base of his spine there. So that's what they target. And now when this movie first came out, it was billed as the final Godzilla movie. So
Oh yeah, that.
yeah.
I almost forgot that that total was suggested. This film was going to be the last of the Heisei film.
Well, they were
Because
thinking all of the films because this was the 40th anniversary, and from what I understand, they were like, gonna be done. Maybe with the Heisei, just done with the series, and because that was the like tagline, "Godzilla dies." That was like the big thing. I'm like, so as a first time watching it, I mean, it's always traumatic to see Godzilla die. For me
yeah,
anyway. Like, what's not this one? It wasn't as traumatic as Destroya. That one just brought me to tears. But
yeah, but
um this one, but it also provides a vehicle then for Rodan to come and give his life force, which we see in that theme going back to Mothra. It does the same thing, and we see that quite often as one of the themes. And I've done a little bit of research into Godzilla, and it's one of the Shinto concepts that the Japanese traditional religion is this concept of nagare, the flow of life. And it's usually symbolized through water. So water starts off as, like I say, in an ocean, and it evaporates, it goes up into a cloud, and then it comes back down as rain. So there's this kind of endless cycle, and it's birth and death and rebirth. And Mothra is a good example of that because there's always the adult moth and the egg. The adult moth dies, then the egg comes out. And we see that in this movie too. We have the egg, we have Rodan who dies, giving, Godzilla dies, then Rodan's dying, gives him his life essence, and then it kind of rejuvenates Godzilla, who then comes back with Rodan's fire beam. He has that red fiery breath weapon now
that's
instead of the blue.
that's right. And yeah, and I heard there were two natural endings to this film that were scrap, and
Hmm.
that I I think the one was Mechagodzilla was supposed to kill Godzilla at the end, and Godzilla dies, but then later Baby Godzilla absorbs up the radiation and it turns into the new Godzilla.
Mm.
But well, we'll get to that in the next film for Destroya.
Two later. The next one's Space Godzilla,
Yeah,
because
well,
this movie was supposed to end, and then I think the Toho, because it made really good money at the box office, they went, "Hey, we can make more money. Crank out another Godzilla film," and that's why Space Godzilla feels so rushed in a way. I think of the Heisei movies, that one I think sticks out the worst. But Yeah, but we see that in Destroy, the same concept where baby absorbs, the big Godzilla dies, and then the baby absorbs it, and then there's that flow of life. The Nagari comes back full circle. So now we have the baby doesn't look like baby anymore because he's just like a big Godzillasaurus,
Yeah.
like not quite developed between a Godzillasaurus and Godzilla, and now it's like a full-fledged, the very last shot where you see him kind of, in the smoke and the light, you see a fully formed, Godzilla because he's absorbed all that radiation. So it's kind of neat.
Yep. It. Yep. And as what else I was gonna say? So yeah, but it is so cool that Radon sacrificed itself to give his life away to Godzilla, and then because in the Shona era that Godzilla teams up with Rodan in the two Shona films.
Mm-hmm.
uh, But then in this one, Godzilla just fights Rodan. They're not like they're enemies, but now at the end, that Radon just give his life away to Godzilla. It's like they're like pals again.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but unless you're connecting it to the fact that it was baby's voice, as we hear what Godzillasaurus is called, baby. It's the baby Godzilla that roars, and then that kind of revives Rodan. So I think Rodan's responding to that sense of like the baby's in distress, and so that's the best way that Rodan can help, kind of. But if one thing I noticed that the last time when I watched it this time that I hadn't really thought about it before is when Godzilla gets up, he's revived and gets up. There's all this dust and glitter. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
Rodan. Rodan blows all over the place, and that's what melts the skin, the outer skin of the Mechagodzilla. Like it overheats and starts melting and shutting everything down. It's because that's the ashes, literally the ashes of Rodan, like still having a powerful effect. It's almost like they did that with Mothra too. Like Mothra
Yeah.
in the
There's
show would have with like dust, this yellow dust that would come out. It was kind of poisonous and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say that this is so far they have two films so far that has glitter dust on the kaiju's, and well, first in Mothra, and now Mechagodzilla 2.
Yeah, and we'll see it again in Destroya as Godzilla is having the meltdown. It's just
Yeah,
being flown up in the air. Yeah.
and I can say that Godzilla's red heaping is more powerful, and then it's actually destroyed Mechagodzilla with all the crew in it,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, but the crew survived because
Even though the robotic voice said, the crew's all dead, and the one guy's like, no, we're not dead, we're fine. But yes, it certainly did a hurting to him.
I like the voice saying like damage level 10. This ship has been destroyed. There are
Right.
no survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I gotta say it in the original Japanese language. I mean, with English subtitles. I mean, there are a lot of English speaking language in this one. Some
Yeah,
parts.
the training sequence has a lot of English, which surprised me, and I'm not sure why that is. It does sound a little out of place at times, only because I'm wondering the purpose of having English spoken in a movie made for Japanese moviegoers, because if it's going to be released overseas, you would think it would, it's going to be subtitled or dubbed. So yeah, I was curious as to why that was done, but yeah, there is quite a bit of English, especially the painful, the one American scientist. So if we could take that coupler and put it over here and match this, like they just said, make up some lines. Like he didn't know what he was saying or doing.
Yeah.
Like it was taken out of context. Now it's time to, what's the great line? To put our weapons to the final test.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's you see him in a couple of scenes. I'm like, man, he's just got the worst lines and the worst delivery. And so if we take this, he's like, they're looking at Mechagodzilla and he's like pointing out something to the worker, and he's like, well, if we take this and we put it over here, it's like they're probably just said, why don't you just say something that sounds like technological? Go. And he's just making up stuff as he goes. That's that was my guess as to how he got that, because otherwise it just makes no sense. They kind of cut him off.
Yeah, I love that line he says, like, the time has come, finally, to put our technology to the final test.
Yeah.
Hey, how
Yeah.
did I do there? Did I do great?
Right.
That's
Yeah,
my Rodney Dangerfield
nice,
impression.
nice.
And I gotta say, the English dub voicing for that guy almost sounds like Rodney Dangerfield.
You don't get no respect. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you watch the English dub of this film, that guy's dubbing voice, it actually kind of sounds like Rodney
oh, okay.
Dangerfield.
So I've never seen the dubbed version, so I'll have to go back and watch for that. I've only seen the the Japanese versions with subtitles, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, usually I don't watch the original Japanese language with English subtitles. I usually watch these films in dubbed.
Hmm. Well, I
But
grew
now,
up and that's all there was, and now when the new movies come out, sometimes you can get a good dub copy. And I know when Sony TriStar began bringing a lot of stuff out, they had new audio tracks on some of these. But this is stuff I remember as a kid, so I try to find those versions, the AIP dubs or whatever. And now with the other versions, they're out there. I don't watch them frequently enough to check it out, but I will next time because sometimes, even though I've seen the story, I know what it is. Sometimes I just don't want to read subtitles, but I do like watching the new movies in subtitles because I think we get a more accurate story than we would if someone's trying to dub in what looks like what someone is saying. And so that's why I like the subtitles. But sometimes I just want to watch a movie and not read.
yeah, I felt the same way too. But now I'm starting to watch some of these films in original Japanese with English subtitles, and
Hmm. And what do you think about the differences? What do you think about that?
I
Oh,
like
yeah.
both. And
Thanks, Nick. We'll talk about that certainly. Thank you for the
oh
reminder.
yeah, yeah, we gotta talk about the deleted scene.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I didn't know anything about this deleted scene. You had sent this clip to me about baby Godzilla being afraid of Mickey.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, yeah, in that clip, I mean, when I watched the English subtitles of it, I mean, at first they already discovered baby after it hatched, and then
mhm.
but I think the scene there was a scene, but that was cut out. That the scene was that baby was afraid of Mickey, or all three people almost went into the cage, but baby was afraid. He made that face when he opened his mouth and his upper lips almost went up. And
Yeah, it seemed because from what that clip says is Mickey says because she's being seen as an enemy because she's been using her psychic force to try to repel Godzilla. And she doesn't see herself as an enemy. She's just trying to prevent people from getting hurt. So I thought it was an interesting scene that way. And then she was told, well, just open your heart, and baby Godzilla will know you're not an enemy. And that's when it happens. She goes in very cautiously and opens her heart. However that happens, and then baby Godzilla responds with affection, and then with the tail and messes up her hair.
yeah,
You know,
I thought that scene was like adorable.
Mhm.
The baby was messing Mickey's hair with his tail, and then Mickey was kind of cool with that, and he's just kind of giggles at baby, and
it was an unexpected kind of. It was very. It was yeah. It was a
I thought it was
very
like
charming.
adorable.
Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah, it was unexpected for sure. We don't see that often. And like going back to like Son of Godzilla, there was the relationship between the woman on the island who was like
Oh
throwing
yeah,
fruit, and stuff to him, but there wasn't this kind of intimacy. And so now that we have a relatively human-sized Godzilla in this form, we can see we can see that it's still very very much a baby, and imprinted on humans. So, but it makes sense with the Mickey connection, is that because she's the one character who's in all the Heisei movies. She's kind of this character who shows up, and which I like that. It gives some sense of
yeah,
continuity in a way
yeah,
that was lacking before.
and she's always my favorite character, and I gotta say I know that the actress who play Asusa, who raised baby, I mean, she does a good job with playing as a character to raise baby as a mother, but to me, I know that yeah, Mickey doesn't get that much attention in the previous film, and but he gets but she gets a little more attention in this one.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and
but
in Destroya, she gets a lot in Biolante. You know,
yeah,
and
especially Space Godzilla.
yeah. So yeah, she kind of has her moments there, but no, I like the character, and I liked that Toho was keeping continuity, because in the Showa era they would use the same stable of actors, you would see the same people playing different roles, and but now they actually have characters who are continuing on, very much like you see in the Gamera trilogy in the 90s, where we have the detective who's in, you know, all three movies. We see him whether he's up or down in various modes, but that same character is in all three movies, which is kind of a nice, I just
Y-
like that. It keeps the
Yeah,
world realistic.
yeah, I gotta say that the woman who plays Azusa in Mechagodzilla 2 was in, I think she was in 3 of the Gamera trilogy.
Oh, very well could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought I recognized her, and then yeah, and I love the moment when baby first hatches, and then when she sees Azusa, and it's kind of baby actually think it is his mother.
Hmm.
I just thought it was adorable,
Yeah, they
and
imprint like any baby, like a duckling or a goose, or you know, birds tend to, or most animals when they're born tend to imprint on the first thing they see. So if it's a person raising it, then it certainly makes sense that they would look at that person and imprint, saying that, you know, you're like my mother. So that makes perfect sense.
mm, yeah, and yeah, and oh go Gochi fan 85-1 has a he has the horror of
Honor,
meeting
yeah, honor of meeting Mickey.
honor of meeting Mickey. Yeah, I did meet Megalodata and is at G Fest back in 2018, and I gotta say that she was so nice. I'm finally glad to meet her, and it was my dream to meet the Mickey Sagusa.
Sure. It's always nice to meet these people who've meant so much to you, you know. And I haven't been to G Fest for a few years, but I have gone to quite a few G Fests, and I've met a lot of wonderful people. And so it's been amazing to just kind of get to know them and say thank you. You know, that's all you want to do. Just say thank you, and let them know how much you appreciate what they do. And this is so much, you know, for a kid like me, I still refer to myself as a kid, like a monster kid. I mean, I've been watching monster movies all my whole life. So to meet these people who you never would expect to meet, and just to spend a few moments with them, get a picture, get an autograph, just share a personal story, you know, that's really meaningful. So I do love that about G Fest.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back there this year. I'll be there for 3 days, and
Oh, nice.
yep, I can't wait to meet my online friends again and all that.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. That's the best part. You know, the more I go, it becomes more about the spending the quality time with the people you see. That's the only time you see them is at G Fest. It's like it's not about the toys. It's not about other things. It's about spending time with people and just that relationship, cultivating it. And it's a very special time. You know, it goes by way too quickly. But for me, that's my Christmas. You know, I prefer G Fest to Christmas. So I just like going and spending that time there. It's very special.
Oh yeah, it is. But anyway, so I want to talk about more about Baby. I mean,
Sure.
Baby is not like Godzilla in the Heisei, but Baby is more gentle and harmless, and because it's a Godzillasaurus, but it's been irradiated a little, and he also eats plants.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not, that was one thing that we often wondered, like, we're never really given, like, what does Godzilla eat? Aside from we see him gobbling up some like radiation in 1984, The Return of Godzilla, but that was a new
Yeah,
thing for them. And before you never saw what would this creature have to eat, you know. And so
yeah. I
now
mean,
we're starting off as an herbivore anyway. Yeah, it was very interesting.
yes, and it's so silly that like in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, we never see a Godzillasaurus eat something. I mean,
Right. Just on that island, yeah. If the Godzillasaurus sticks in as a plant eater, then I gotta wonder what's it eating when it's full grown. Is it, what is it eating?
yeah,
At that stage, I could understand it being like a whale, like basking for plankton and things like that. Sucking things through gills or something. But we just don't know what they eat.
yeah. But now we have an answer
Hmm.
that it eats plants. Like,
Right. At least as a baby, we know they do eat plants. Right.
yeah, and also for the uh, transported truck when they carried the baby to an exhibit.
Hmm.
I like the one when Azusa was in the truck with baby. It was
Hmm.
in like a burger or something,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and he just gave the baby a burger, or was it just a bun?
I know they were sharing it. I don't remember if it was part of that. So maybe the baby's omnivorous, and that's like the first like you know food it got because it was that plant that it liked. But yeah, maybe it's omnivorous. It'll eat meat and which makes more sense that a creature like that get that big would probably have some kind of protein source.
Yeah, and
Unless it
it,
just really likes hamburgers, and you got to cook up a million hamburgers for
yeah,
Godzilla.
I say for that scene, they should do a commercial of that, like, see Baby Godzilla at McDonald's.
That would be maybe they did have commercials at the time. That would have been. I mean, there's really good. Toho was really good at marketing and promoting different things with Godzilla. So that would make perfect sense that they would have some kind of connection to. Like we do here in the States with Burger King and McDonald's Happy Meals connecting to some Disney thing. It would make perfect sense that they have
Yeah,
Baby Godzilla at your favorite burger place.
yeah, and also what is shocking and what make baby hatch from his egg is because of a plant has this like kind of music thing that was created by
Hmm.
some by the children at a convention.
Yeah, the psychic children. That's a carryover again from from Biolante. We see that notion of here's the psychic research going on, and I thought that was a really fascinating way because when they articulated it into sound that we could hear, and then kind of that very kind of a haunting kind of aria. Then yeah, we see the egg glow. We see it also being used to kind of calm Baby Godzilla down at the end when his eyes are glowing red and he's afraid.
Yeah,
Now we see that when Mickey kind of projects this music, it allows him to calm down and go with Godzilla. Like the music is important because it was in the plants.
yeah,
Maybe that's why the baby is eating the plants, but we see that kind of something that we can't hear, but animals can. There's an energy or a life force in these plants that translates into music and can be very effective. So yeah, I like that aspect of the story.
yeah, and also affects Rodan too, and when he is unconscious, and
Hmm.
yeah, and it's like the energy of the music. It comes fire Rodan, and he just takes off and trying to find his half brother, Baby Godzilla.
Yeah, they're connected because they were in eggs like next to one another. So it's almost like they're in the same womb, so to speak. Like they're twins of a sort, even though they're different species. But something in the proximity of being close together for as long as they were, both getting radiated, for who knows how long.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
kind of like that aspect.
yeah, and also speaking of twins, I mean, there was a scene at the psychic class that the two actresses who played the Cosmos in Godzilla versus Mothra, they made a cameo. They just play the assistant teachers at the psychic
Oh,
class, and they actually kind of almost look like the Cosmos, but except they're human size.
oh, I never knew that.
If
That's
you look if you
that's
look
interesting.
back to that scene, they they just the actresses just did it for like a cameo,
Okay,
and you could
I
tell
like
they in that scene they're actually talking at the same time. They're
that.
you know
That's
like
brilliant. No, I'll have to watch it again now because I didn't know that. Yeah, it's like when Hiro Nakajima would be, like in uniform, or a soldier or something. He's just like in the background. He's there as a small role. It's kind of nice to see these actors kind of playing things, because Nakajima was always in the suit, so it was kind of nice to see him, in his human form, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I like when Radon finally grabs the box, the container that Asusa and Baby were in, and I like I was so shocked that Radon actually flies over the Magic Kingdom in Disney
Mhm.
World Japan.
Yeah, I think that was a healthy dose of product placement.
Mm,
Like, hey, look at here. I mean, we see that also, that theme carried from Mothra from the year before, with the giant Ferris wheel.
yeah.
With the big fight is with the big Ferris wheel. So it's almost like, let's one up. We got to do something bigger and grander than this. So yeah, let's go to the Magic Kingdom. And it's also good product placement. To be, if I'm being cynical about it, but it makes perfect sense. Like, hey, let's showcase these kinds of places, and it's probably an honor. I'm gonna guess, from what I understand. Like, if in the day, Godzilla would destroy a building and it had your company's logo on it. It was like a great honor for this company to have their building or logo destroyed by Godzilla. So I'm going to assume it's something similar to that Rodan's flying over your theme park. It might be some kind of like an honorific or something like that
Yeah.
for them.
And I think I think Toho was gonna have Godzilla fight Mechagodzilla at near the Magic Kingdom, but I don't think that it wouldn't be a good idea because they don't want some Disney fans to see some kaiju monsters destroy their childhood theme park.
That very well may be it. Right, that could be it. Certainly, yeah, makes sense.
I don't want some giant kaiju monsters destroying my theme park.
Excellent.
Oh,
Yes.
why did those kaiju monsters have to destroy my theme park?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. The mouse that roared, the House of Mouse.
Yeah. Oh boy. I should do a voice impression video someday.
You should. Yeah, you can make a living doing that. Definitely. That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and wow, almost an hour already.
Yeah, this has gone by really quickly. This has been wonderful fun.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did some research about this film, and yeah, I mean, this film wasn't one of my favorite of the Heisei, but
Which one do you
it
like the best of the Heisei series? Which one is your favorite?
I love the 1985 Godzilla one.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean there are a few favorites. I mean,
Hmm.
there's first 1985 Biollante and is in King Ghidorah, Space Godzilla, and Destroyer,
Yeah.
and Mothra.
Hmm.
I
Have you
mean,
seen the original, the Japanese version, like the 1984, like the original Return of
oh
Godzilla?
yeah, I have the Kraken release Blu-ray
Oh, okay.
version
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have both versions of it. One is the 1985 booth link.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got several copies of those floating around in various,
Yeah,
dubs and subs and stuff like that. I
yeah,
do like the fuller, the full Japanese length. I think it's a smarter movie than the American cut, to make room for the Steve Martin character to return,
yeah, and also I want to say that Mickey's character in this film, I mean, they actually made her join the G-Force. They want to use her psychic powers to find Godzilla's second brain,
Hmm.
and then for that part, like Mickey kind of doesn't want to but they made her do it, and
Yeah.
because they want
Hmm.
they want to end Godzilla, but Mickey doesn't want to because she always shares this psychic link to Godzilla, and
Yeah.
she kind of cares about the monster.
I think she does. Yeah, definitely. I think she understands, though. But I mean, as we see earlier in the film, I mean, the destruction that Godzilla causes when looking for Baby is just astronomical. Blows up a whole refinery, and how many people died in this attack? We don't know. But it's horrific destruction. So it makes perfect sense. But at the same time, because she has that psychic connection to him, she's definitely feels something. It's tangible. She has an empathy toward this monster. So I think being used as a tool to kill it, I think is really hurtful for her. I think she's definitely crying, and that seems like a very honest moment for her character. Is that she doesn't want to do this, but she understands that she has to. But even then, she does it grudgingly. You know.
Yeah, and speaking of crying, I mean, there was the one scene that Asusa was saying goodbye to Baby, and when she almost got into the helicopter, that Baby just grabs her jacket by his mouth, and just because he feels like that his mama is leaving
Mm-hmm.
him,
Yeah.
and if you look carefully, you can see Baby was actually crying. You could actually see a tear uh, coming out of the eyes, dripping down.
Oh yeah. 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 Definitely, that emotional connection is there. Yeah, they established that pretty well. Sure,
Yeah,
that's a
and
good detail.
but also Godzilla comes along, and then but Baby is afraid of Godzilla
Hmm.
because that Baby and Godzilla are definitely not related.
Well,
It,
well, we don't know that. We don't know the relationship, because Godzilla is just an adult Godzillasaurus, right? So
yeah,
it might be, or it could just be another one of that same species. We don't know. We're not given that information.
yeah,
But we also, that's also the whole, Godzilla or Minya being afraid of, or God Baby being afraid of Godzilla, mirrors that first time we see in Son of Godzilla, and especially in Godzilla's Revenge, where Minya is afraid of Godzilla, like, he scares me, kind of thing. And where we know it's a father-son relationship, but it's pretty strict and stern, when Godzilla like stepping on his tail and stuff to get him to breathe fire. So I think they were kind of, since they brought him back, the character Minya, or Baby Godzilla, they were, I think, kind of bringing in some of those themes, those motifs from that first movie, where he's afraid of Godzilla, but inevitably they have to kind of go, together. So in a way, it was kind of like to bring back an old movie, Harry and the Hendersons, where they got to, Bigfoot has to go back to the woods because that's the best for what the creature, So even though Mickey and everyone wants to help raise Godzilla and Baby Godzilla, they know what's best for the creature is to go with Godzilla. So
yeah.
there's that as well, letting something go because it's better for that creature.
Yeah, and like I say, when Asusa leaves Baby and then Godzilla takes him back. I mean, that is sort of like a sad Bambi moment, like
Hmm.
when Bambi's mother died from the hunters, and then
Hmm.
Bambi is off on his own, and then he's ran into his dad, and that's the prince, and he just goes with his dad. I mean, this is sort of like that moment.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They have to go, even though it's a wild animal. That's why when you rescue wild animals, eventually the goal is to rescue them to get them to go back into the wild. You don't want to turn them into pets because they're wild animals. And the best life they can have is to be a wild animal in their habitat, whatever that is. So I think that's the ultimate message here, which it continues on with the environmental issues that a lot showed up in the Heisei 2 series. Just making sure we're taking care of things and being better. So it makes sense to kind of continue this message. We're not going to try to impose our human will on this wild animal and give it the best chance it can of having a good life.
yeah, and when Godzilla and Baby were taken off to sea, I mean, I bet the fans were like curious, like where are they gonna go? I mean,
Hmm.
but now we found the answer in the next film of Space Godzilla, and and yeah, so that was like all we know about Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, and and they said that this was gonna be the last film because they wanted to want Godzilla to die in this one,
Hmm.
but no, but Toho decided to hold it off for in in a few years. So
Couple years, yeah. They quickly came back with Space Godzilla, And that's where we see the super cutesy looking baby with the very round and big puppy eyes, and
Yeah.
it is like morphed into a different creature, and
Yeah.
that kind of the lizard like realism of the super baby now has turned into a chubby little like overly cute version. I'm like just for me, my taste, but I understand the appeal because we got Mothra, or the baby Godzilla has to be endangered by Space Godzilla. That's the whole point. So by making him super cute and puppy like, then the audience, especially if they're younger kids, are going to emulate or empathize with this baby, sympathize, and because then they see something cute and adorable like a kitten that they want to protect, and so it makes perfect sense from a filmmaking point of view to make baby adorable. So
Yeah, it does make further sense. And
because by the time Destroyer comes around, he looks like a little tiny un not fully developed Godzilla. He's got the dorsal spines. He's back to kind of being, dark gray or black color and little tiny spines. I mean, he's completely almost like reverted back in form to the way he hatched. So there's this weird like stage where he turns into this goofy looking cute thing and then back into a full blown like little Godzilla. So yeah.
yeah, and well, thank you so much for sharing us, Mark. And we're just about that time, and it was a really great episode that we did. And I'm really glad to have you on here, Mark. And that you know so much about the film, and glad you did some research about it. And I guess, and like I said, this is the only Heisei Godzilla film that is my least favorite, but I like the rest of the Heisei films.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they all have some merit. I agree. Yeah, we all like our things. That's the thing about this fandom, is we all have our things that we like, and we can differ on which movies we like, and that's cool. It's like, hey, you like what you like, I like what I like, but we still, at the end of the day, we like this series. We like these characters, and we care about them, and we enjoy watching this type of entertainment. So, but I want to thank you, Brendan, for having me on. This has been a blast, and I really enjoyed getting to know you and talk about Godzilla, and really appreciate that you have me on.
And you're welcome, Mark. And I'm going to have you on here too. And that's what I do for my show. I have special guests on here to talk about these classic films, and to talk about the behind scenes of it, and let the guests get to know me a little. And yeah, and I'm thank you so much for having it. I thank you so much for joining me on this, and hopefully someday in the future hopefully I'll be a guest on your show someday.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love that.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm thinking about taking a few weeks vacation.
Good. Yeah, it gets to a point where you're doing podcasts all the time. You get a little burned out. It's okay to take some downtime. You got to recharge.
Yeah, then that was actually the English dub line for in the film.
Oh, great. Okay, see,
Yeah.
I did not having watched the dub line. I wouldn't know it. That's really good.
Yeah, I like that one scene the other day. I said, it's like, you see, sir, I kind of use a few day vacation. Well, ask my permission first before you take a vacation.
Nice.
That's like
wonderful.
And anyway, and once again, thanks for joining me on here. And until next time, next episode will be Godzilla versus Space Godzilla from 1994. And like I say in Japanese, sayonara.